Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 1 of Successful Women Think Differently. I love how Valerie started this book talking about the fact that sometimes we see people who are winning. We see women who it seems like no matter what they do, everything they touch turns to gold. All of their relationships are great. All of their kids are great. All of their business ventures are great. Their fitness is great. Their nutrition's great. Even their fashion is great. Everything, they got everything figured out. And sometimes it feels like, well, that must be nice. Must be nice if I only had this that she has, or that she has, or the other thing that she has, maybe I would be able to be as successful as her. But the only thing that you actually need that the successful people have is their thoughts. When you think differently and you believe differently, you behave differently. The only difference between an unsuccessful person and a successful person is the way they show up. And the only thing that determines the way they're going to show up is what they're thinking and believing. So this book, I started reading right after Super Saturday. And Brittany can always tell when it's my read this book day because I'm blowing up her phone. First of all, I make an excellent post. Every time I read this, that's like where my content comes from right away. Like I'll have to stop reading, make a post, come back and finish reading. And then I have to go voice message her all the reasons why everyone on our team needs this book. So here we are. And so far, she also loves it, which was like, good job. But okay, so let's jump in. Listen, let me just kind of set the stage for this book study. What this is not supposed to be is a summary of what we have read. Okay, so if you showed up thinking, oh, well, she's going to summarize this for me. No, I'm not. We really expect you guys to dig into this book and take ownership of your own growth. It's night 1. If you weren't able to read this week, it's okay. You're not excluded, but moving forward, you need to have ownership of this book. You can't play the Christina game of only read the chapter. I'm responsible for leading. Try something different and let's read the whole book cover to cover. I'm telling you, there's probably not another book out here that could change your business a year from now. It's not another message that you need. It's not a script that you need. It's new thoughts that you need. And this is going to teach you that. So all of you who want to level up and you're thinking, I'd like to be 2, 3, 4, 5 ranks ahead of where I'm at now in a year, what's going to determine it is what is between your ears. And so take ownership of your growth. Show up every week having read, show up every week prepared to share something that impacted you. Leaders are initiators. And if you don't insert yourself, what you're going to find is the same 8 or 10 of us, we got a lot to say. We're excited about what we're learning. And so we tend to be a little overbearing. But what we want you to do is interrupt us, jump in, say some things, share what's impacted you. So that's what you can expect for the next 10 weeks. Okay. Tonight we're going over the intro and the 7 key decisions. And I have so much to say about all of it. So let's just move because I actually have to hear from you guys. Okay. So he says in there that Michelle was the better student. Okay. She had everything going for her. She should have been the one that was just gonna most likely to succeed, except for her fear halted her. Her fear halted her. It kept her playing small. So what I want to know is what you guys think that fear must have cost her in her life. Because she was unwilling to make courageous decisions in spite of the fear, what do you think that cost her? Obviously this is a hypothesis, but knowing what we know, what did that cost her? Unmute and give me some thoughts.
Happiness, joy, freedom, and just the first ones off my mind.
Yeah.
First ones off my mind was dollar bills.
It did cost her dollar bills. Yes, also. What else? I'm prepared to make this as awkward as possible.
It might not be awkward for anybody but you.
Oh.
I mean, her dreams.
A lot of focus and energy on something that she didn't end up enjoying or
And
getting
what did that
enjoyed.
cost her? Yes. So she did that. And so because of that, the price she paid was what?
Energy.
Yeah.
And focus on things that didn't, I mean, she would still learn because you still learn if you get a degree or, you're still going to learn and grow, but just more time, more of a sidetrack in her process.
Yeah.
Self-value.
Mm.
Feeling unfulfilled.
Mm.
I would say like a lot of regret, like a lot of what ifs, like what if I had done that? What if I had continued this or whatever? And then just that regret feeling of what could have been.
Yeah. Man, that's a tough feeling, which brings us right into my question. What are we willingly giving up in our future when we allow our fears in this business to be louder than our faith in this business? Let me repeat it. What are we willingly giving up in our future when we allow the fears of this business to be louder than our faith in this business?
Our dreams. Some people are saying dreams, and I agree with that. I think also you're giving up opportunities to impact people and offer them a transformation. I think that God gave you talents and gifts and strengths and abilities so that you could be a blessing to others, not like hoard it to yourself. And you're also giving up tens of thousands of dollars. Not that money's the most important thing till you don't have it. Then it's the most, I mean, it's up there with oxygen. It's important. And you have to have it to live. And it provides opportunities for your family. So these things cost you opportunities, cost you impact, cost you a whole lot of things that you want and could have.
I agree. And something else costing you is the ability to understand that like the feeling when you realize you can believe in yourself because you have achieved what felt unachievable to some people. There's nothing like that feeling. Most people don't ever experience that feeling because they assume that if other people can't do it or won't do it, maybe I shouldn't either. But when you can accomplish something that most people won't, y'all, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that feeling. And when you have felt it one time, it gives you this like freeing ability to know that no matter what happens, no matter how bad something is or whatever, like you're capable. And the feeling of capable for me brings security. Because if I'm capable, like you're going to have to put me like 10 feet under the ground to hold me down. I'm going to figure some things out. And so just that confidence. Okay, great. Thank y'all for answering questions. This quote stood out to me a ton because I think some people think, I had a conversation tonight, new business builder. And when I asked her what had held her back from ever doing something like this before, or what she thought would hold her back, what she said is fear. And she explained herself a little bit more. She might even be on here. And I said, well, let me ask you something. It sounds like you think that fear somehow disqualifies you from being eligible to be successful here. She's like, well, yeah, like, I mean, if I didn't have this fear, I could probably be successful. I said, let me challenge something. What if I told you every single successful person here also had and has those same fears? They've just acted in opposition of it. She was like, well, I never thought about it that way, but that feels like opportunity. That feels like that could be possible. I could act in opposition to my fear if someone had ever given me that idea. So she says in the book, the road to success had been rocky. This was for the girl who did go on to be the most successful. The road to her success had been rocky. At each step along her path, there had been moments where fear crept in and threatened to steal her resolve. But each time she mustered the courage to push through. First of all, that could be a literal description of my first 4.5 years in this business. Okay. Literal description. But what stood out to me on that was where she said she mustered the courage. When you think about somebody mustering courage, it's like they have to dig down really, really deep. When you muster something, it's not the very first reaction you would attempt to have. Like when there's fear, the first attempt at an emotion is not to dig down deep and muster courage. Think about when something scary is going on. Your first instinct, we're watching a scary movie or you hear a noise outside you don't like, your first instinct is hide, avoid, get away from, scream, call for help. Like that's all your reaction. But when you muster courage, it's like you're choosing to stand and brace yourself and then dig down deep to go forward anyway. You guys, courage is not ever necessary except for in the face of fear, right? So where are some times that maybe you have faced some fear in this business? Somebody has told you the most successful people do this, and you're like, holy crap, I don't know if that's me. And how have you been able to overcome that? What does it look like to act in opposition of that big, scary fear?
Oh, I'll go. I mean, I'm fearful all the time. Anytime I'm talking, well, not now, but just being in front of people. I remember we had an event. It was kind of like Momentum Meetup, or was it Momentum Meetup in Christina in Atlanta? And I had to get in front of the people and share my story. Was Jim Bev there? Yeah, in front of Jim Bev. I was scared to death. But how I overcame it was focusing on other people. That is always what helps me. I mean, I'm still very fearful, but I just take the focus off of me. My heart rate's still really fast when I'm doing it, but I know people need to hear what I have to say. So that's how I overcome it. But I mean, I got like 462 of those times that I'm fearful all the time.
Same, Terry. I think most people don't know this about type 6s. We're kind of known for being fearful, but we're actually the most courageous type because everything feels scary to us. And we just have to always do things scared or nothing gets done. It gets done. I remember as a silver ambassador, we didn't have training in Plexus when I was a silver. And so I had bought Sarah Robbins training that was on CDs. Remember those CDs? Well, I listened to them and she said, call people on the phone and tell them about your business opportunity. And so I called my ex-mother-in-law on the phone and I was shaking, like literally like shaking, was so nervous, but I did it. And you know what? She did end up working the business. And so that was the first time. Well, wasn't the first time, but I think that was probably the scariest thing I did early on. And as my business grew and I would see people who come in and say they want this, but then they weren't really successful, I realized that what was making me different was my willingness to do things that made me very uncomfortable and felt very scary. Most people are just not willing. They would rather be comfortable than be very successful. And I would rather be very successful.
How did you get to that point where you would rather have been successful? Like what was it? Is it so, or let me ask it this way. What do you think it takes to get someone from that to make that jump? Because there's someone that has to bridge the gap between this, where I'm at now, where I potentially could be. There's somebody's got to usually hold a hand or build a bridge or something. What do you think it takes to bridge that?
I think vision and belief.
Yeah.
Vision of what is possible and belief that it actually could happen.
I love that. And the reason I think of that, that's so important is because sometimes what we want to do is just hurry up and go tell people what to do. But then they're still on this side of the bridge, seeing where they could end up, and they have a list of to-dos, but this still feels impassable. So what you got to do, guys, is slow down and build the bridge of vision and belief so that they can then accomplish the to-do list on the trek over to the other side.
And I think also, Christina, something that you've done with me is not just help build my vision and belief, but show me what you see in myself that I may overlook based on either past life experiences or things that other people have said to me in my life. You're like, look, this is what I see in you. And I know these certain traits or these certain things. So I think having those people in our lives that will point out the things and the positives that we might not see in ourselves sometimes.
I love that. Challenge what people think and believe about themselves. If somebody told you something one time and you made it truth, well, hell, let me tell you something new this time and let's make that your new belief. Like challenge what people think and believe about themselves. I agree. How are we out of time? Oh, we're crushing it.
So about talking about closing the gap on the bridge, Christine tells me I have to close this gap. Like, we need to have a video that you can use. And I'm like, y'all, I can talk to a dang wall. I don't have a problem talking. When I tell you doing a video scares the absolute mess out of me, I'm an over preparer. I'm perfectionist. I will redo a voice clip 17 times before I send it. She like hypes me up. She keeps telling me I can do it. It's going to be good. It's going to be good for your team. You're going to use this. I sent her a picture afterwards, y'all. I was completely covered in hives. I did the whole video. You won't watch the video and know I had hives. I had hives all over my entire body, but I did it anyways. And now the video is useful. And it didn't work. The internet cut off. We had to redo it a whole second time. But I did it scared and I didn't die. And it really has been helpful. So even if you genuinely feel like you might pass out and die, just keep going and your adrenaline will get you through it. And then you'll feel empowered because now I know I can do it again.
Yep. Absolutely.
I also get nervous doing videos, like talking to people in my stories and stuff. I get really nervous. But Jessa has helped me a whole lot, and she's always my hype girl. So really appreciate her.
Yeah. One thing that I will tell myself if I'm feeling fearful, because contrary to popular belief, I actually do have emotions, and fear is one of them that I can feel on occasion. And what I almost always, and I'm telling you, Brittany can attest to this, when we were water skiing, immediately I'm like, what's the best that can happen? Oh, the best that can happen is that I'm an absolute rock star water skier. I'm gonna focus there. And I would tell myself, you're about to crush this. You are a water skier. Like, watch you ski. I did not ski. I was actually not.
As she's falling on her face in the water,
but-
drugged.
Imagine how bad it would have been if I hadn't. Whatever. I'm not a skier, but I believed I was gonna. So imagine how much worse it would have been if I hadn't believed it. So yeah, like always thinking, okay, what's the best that could happen here? What if this actually does go in my favor? That's just a way better feeling than what's the worst that can happen. Some people will say, what's the worst that can happen? Well, if you're not gonna die, go for it. Go for it. Okay, so in the book where he talks about, there's a chart and it categorizes what successful people do and versus unsuccessful people. She says, successful people think differently, set goals differently, make decisions differently, bounce back from failure and adversity differently, and they tap into their strengths differently. What I'm curious about, and I'll read the list again, is which of those attributes do you think you're like nailing? Like, okay, I definitely feel like I do show up as a successful person here. And which ones are you not? They think differently. They set goals differently. They make decisions differently. They bounce back from failure and adversity differently, and they tap into strengths differently. Here's what I see. One thing that sets me apart, and I'll own this, is I bounce back from failure and adversity like nobody's business. It just ain't going to hold me down. I hate that feeling, and so I just don't spend time there. Something that I see that sets up successful people apart on our team from those who are not as successful as they want to be is the setting goals differently. Sometimes people will back away from setting a goal, putting a timeline on something, creating a game plan. It just feels like, well, what I'd rather do is just organic. And it's like, wait a second, successful people, like they're, why are you laughing? Successful people, like they got a game plan. They know where they want to go. If you don't know where you're going and you get in your car, you're just driving in circles. But if you know I'm headed to Orlando, like I'm going to Orlando, it doesn't matter how many tires bust, how much I run out of gas, like none of that matters. I'm going there. And my goal is to be there by this timeline. Some people feel like, well, it creates pressure. Listen, successful people thrive under pressure. They perform their very best under pressure. But sometimes you're going to have to be the one that self-imposes that pressure. Okay, so I was going to ask a question. Areas you're strong in: thinking differently, setting goals differently, making decisions differently, bouncing back from failure and adversity differently, or tapping into strengths differently. Which one of those do you nail?
Well, what page is that on?
Well,
And
listen,
how do we know if we're doing it differently or not?
I mean, are you doing it like winners or losers?
I mean, I
feel like
feel like winners, but how can I be sure?
I mean, are you asking like compare it? Like I think about differently than I was 3.5 years ago.
Oh, you win in Terry. Yeah, that's successful.
If Terry's winning and I'm winning too, we have the same.
We're the
Okay.
same.
So
We're the
case
same
in
to say
point.
our paycheck is more than mine.
Case in point, he says on page, well, I wrote down the page number, page 10. He says on page 10, here's a difference. Successful.
It's the lady who wrote this.
What?
It's the lady who wrote this.
I meant she. I'm always talking about John, and listen, I'm trying to, anyway, John, but this ain't John, this is Valerie. Okay, for instance, she says successful people have a habit of saying no to good opportunities in favor of purposeful ones. Unsuccessful people focus on what they don't have rather than what they have. So it's very obvious. Are you somebody that every single time somebody talks to you, it's like this list of everything that's gone wrong in your week? Like, or are you someone that when someone talks to you, like you're focused on like, these are the positive things. Listen, if I have to be in that camp of like, things feel like it's hitting the fan this week, I usually just don't say anything because I don't want to show up and focus on what I don't have. Does that answer that question? So let me ask you this. On page 10, in that chart, what stood out to you guys?
I mean,
Don't feel sorry for yourself. Sorry.
Who's that?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Bridget.
Don't feel sorry for yourself. Is that something that you have struggled with prior to becoming aware of the fact that you actually have a choice in that?
Like I try not to stay in that space very long. I think that like it was a learned behavior from certain family. But I really try to conscientiously not stay in that space and like move on because like it doesn't do anything to feel sorry for yourself.
Right. Yep.
Over the years, because I like to be friendly to everybody. And most of the time I like everybody, but I have learned that relationships can drain me if they're not positive. Because I'm such a positive person, their negativity brings me down. I don't like that. And so that really, because I like everybody, it's very difficult to try to balance that and protect myself along with not being mean to the other people that are draining me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's called boundaries. I don't be tolerating that crap.
Very much.
Good for you. Good for you. It's going to bring you some freedom.
Are we talking about this chart? I'm having to do it on my phone. The one that's got successful women and unsuccessful women.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what stood out to me, it's really eye-opening, is 3.5 years ago, I was the unsuccessful one. That's what I thought. And now I don't think any of those things. That is huge to me. So if you are a few of those things under unsuccessful, you don't have to stay there. Like it is just choosing the right things to focus on, the right things to think and believe. Because I can't say any of those things.
That's good.
I'm so proud of me.
So proud of you too. I'm so proud of you too.
Y'all have hope. You can change.
You can change. I think the area on this chart that I have seen the most growth in my plexus journey is where it says under unsuccessful, that they strive as though success is a destination, a place where she arrives. That was definitely my MO the first several years in this business. And I feel like that is definitely different now. Definitely different.
Wait, which one did you say?
Strives as though success is a destination, a place where she will arrive. Because really that's kind of like
it's different now. Tell us how it is different now and why.
I thought I was leading this. You don't get to ask the leader of the question.
Right, I just thought that was a very interesting thing people want to hear.
Yeah. So striving as though success was a destination. Back then, what that meant was win at all cost. And if that meant that you left people in the dust, leave them in the dust. And I didn't mean it in a bad way, but like I wasn't intentionally not leading well. It just felt like my goals were priority. Almost like in a this sounds terrible. Maybe I shouldn't answer this, but like what I need, if I were going to sit down and strategize for the month, what I would be thinking is how can I get this person and that person and this person to do what's going to get me where I want to go? Versus like, what does this person want? What is it that they need in their life, in their business? What might they have to go like overcome this month? And am I willing to slow down and help them overcome that? Versus like, oh, you're going to be tough, get out of the way. Like, so just slowing down, taking the time to really, truly develop people, even if that means that the striving looks different. Somehow I thought strive, like I would strive and leave it all on the field. That's kind of how my personality is. And really, I find that you can be working from a place of hard work and intensity with a softness where you really can still focus on other people and be genuine about it. Because when your people win, you win. And I left that part out. All I cared about was the end of that sentence. You win. Until I won and realized it's real lonely because I didn't help anybody else win. Whereas if I had just brought all my friends with me, it might have taken me 6 more months, but I'd have had 6 more friends and we'd all been winning together and the whole experience would have been different. So yeah. All right. Anybody else want to share what stood out to them on page 10?
Well, I think it goes back to what Terry said about having hope, where all of these things are skills. And so don't fret if you're like, oh my gosh, because I was like, oh, I'm more on the unsuccessful woman side. Okay. But it's a skill and I'm going to learn it and get it, and everyone can. And so that is encouraging.
I love that you're self-aware enough to be able to say, hey, you know what? I'm over here right now, but where I want to get is over here. That's so much further than people who are lying to themselves, Chelsea. So just know that self-awareness and being able to say, oh, interesting. Out of these 7 or 8 things, 4 of them, I'm on the wrong side of the column. It's going to give you something really intentional to focus on. So pick one, just pick one at a time until you've gotten some proven evidence of behaving opposite of that. And then when you've done that, pick the next one, Chelsea.
So good. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Okay. I know we're hot on time. Okay. So some help for this book moving forward. She gives you coach you questions where she's like talking about when she's defining success. Do not do the type 3 behavior and brush past them and not stop and work through them. You should be journaling. You should be journaling as you're working through this. You should be like forcing yourself to answer these questions. So when she's talking about how to define success, her definition, so we're all clear, is success is living your life's purpose and embracing resilience. Again, resilience is only needed if you're going to get knocked down. Newsflash, you will. You will. Success is living your life's purpose and embracing resilience and joy as you do. Do you guys know that's one of my resolutions this year was to be peaceful, have peace, have peace and have joy, because listen, all the success in the world matters not if you don't have internal peace. And so again, it's all with what you think and believe. So questions that you should be reflecting on is, who do you impact? When you can get real, it's why Terry has stayed the course. She's very clear on the fact that she can impact. She's very clear on the fact that she has a responsibility to impact, regardless of how she feels about it. Who do you impact? What brings you joy? And y'all listen, sometimes it's okay if it's not the most noble answer. Do you know what brings me joy? Achievement. And I'm okay with that. It doesn't have to be the answer that you wish actually brought you joy. What brings me joy is achievement. I enjoy that. Recognition, love, experiences, love. It's okay. I'm probably not ever going to be the one that's opening orphanages, but listen, I'm going to make dollar bills so I can support some orphanages. Okay. That's what I'm going to do. And then what's your most meaningful goal? All right. And then because we have to fly, I'm so sorry. We need an hour for this book. 7 key decisions. Here's the thing. You can read them yourself, but what she says in the beginning is basically don't bother reading this book if you're not willing to commit to the 7 key decisions. Number 1, I do not downsize my dream. That means when your husband's got something negative to say, your mom's got something negative to say, your coworker has something negative to say, you don't downsize your dream. You don't say, okay, well, never mind. Maybe instead of thinking I can do this, I'll just settle for this. Maybe instead of emerald, like ruby would be fine. No, we don't downsize our dream. Number 2, I focus on solutions, not problems. Listen, I had a rule in my classroom. You could not bring me a problem unless you had 3 valuable solutions. The pencil sharpener's broken. Cool. What are your 3 solutions? Well, I could go ask the janitor, I could borrow across the hall, or I could borrow a pencil from my neighbor. Great. All of those are, pick one. Focus on solutions. Number 3, I choose to be authentic. Guys, we don't need another Brittany or Terry or Michelle. Okay, we definitely don't need another me. Be authentic. Choose courage over fear. I've already said what I have to say about that. I choose relationships wisely and nurture them intentionally. She could have added and walk away from ones that need to be walked away from. I leave ones I need to leave. It's okay. I start ones I need to start and I leave ones I need to leave. That's fine. Number 6, I will actively seek feedback and use it to grow. When somebody asks me, what's the biggest tip? What's going to determine whether or not I'm successful? I had the conversation today. I said, whether or not you're going to solicit feedback. You want me to help you win? I will help you win. You got to solicit feedback. You got to be coming and saying, help me make this better. Number 7, I know my purpose and take daily action in the direction of my vision. That is where my striving changed. When I realized, okay, wait a minute, I'm allowed to work hard. I'm allowed to hustle. I'm allowed to do all of these things as long as I'm knowing my purpose and taking daily action in the direction of my vision. That means it's wholesome and that's good and I can be proud of it. So I had questions for that, but we don't have time. Next week, habit 1. If you didn't do this week's reading justice, do it again. Your success in this book, and I would even say in this next year, is going to be determined on ownership of your growth. Save yourself from having the Christina story where you're going to have to rebuild and rebuild and rebuild until you decide to grow yourself. It's so important. Britt, anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I think you covered it. Great job. Thank you.
So welcome. Okay, guys, good night. See you next week. Adios.